Many of my objections are going to be addressed by others. I will try to address only things that are unique. I want to call your attention to the discussion section 6 of my objections under the section marked Goal 9, Economic Development. Washington County has not been a growth source of either high-tech or manufacturing jobs since the year 2000. Yes, over a decade we've been in decline. This section is an explanation of why that has happened and some of its implications. We have underinvested in infrastructure, especially roads and schools, for a generation. We are no longer competitive for attracting high-tech employers or developing new startups of our own. The Oregonian reported yesterday that state U6 unemployment is 19.5%, the fourth worst in the country. The last 2 years, our U3 unemployment has been seventh worst. The average salary of Oregonians has collapsed back to 91% of the national average. We need to invest in infrastructure. Due to the unemployment and the low average salaries, we cannot afford to make the needed investments. We are in bigger trouble economically than the country as a whole. Things are much worse than most people understand. Public employees, current and former, and school boards may understand this in their gut. It is not only later than we thought, it is later than we thought it could ever get. Most of my objections tie to Goal 9, but a version involving desperation. Given that we do not have enough resources, even if optimally applied, it is economic suicide to encourage urban growth in areas in ways that require non-minimal resources. Switching a little bit, the public record is replete with evidence that Washington County has not acted in good faith. Different topic. The most recent Metro submission includes a map showing that there is no current restrictions on applying for water rights for most of the county. It also includes a report showing that farming in the county has adapted to economic changes quite remarkably. Together, these show that Washington County's Tier 1 system, or tier system, has no scientific or economic basis, but is in fact claimed to be the basis for many of their trade-offs. The appropriate action, this is my conclusion, is to order them to start over and actually follow the rules. This is probably beyond your power. I think you should approve the submission as is, but officially with regret. It is time to pass the ball to another court. Let me make a recommendation that is within your power. It is my first objection and has to do with Area A, which is now called Area A, which appears to be undesignated so that they can build a new road. I recommend that at your earliest convenience, you modify your wise rule about no roads to urban or rural reserves to include undesignated as well. Undesignated clearly deserves at least as much protection as urban reserves. The Washington County meeting that engrossed the final map occurred immediately or shortly after the March 15th meeting. If they had changed anything based on testimony at that hearing, they would have had to go back to Metro. As testified here, that would have slipped them a month or more, which would have meant we would not be here today, because they would not have been able to get on your schedule. As expected then, Metro is going to make UGB decisions this year. If Washington County did not get to you today, they would not be eligible for UGB land for 5 years. After engrossment, they have to have 2 more public hearings and enter testimony. But if they change anything, they have to restart the cycle. Doing this would again cause them to miss your schedule and UGB expansion for 5 years. All of the testimony after the March 15th thing should have been done and should have been relevant, but it had to be ignored by them. Area C or 7I, why is it other than rural reserves? The answer appears to be that Cornelius needs industrial land. Maybe making it undesignated would suggest it will not come into the UGB for 40 plus years. How does that meet Cornelius' need? The answer must be that somebody believes it will come in much sooner. Given that Cornelius needs industrial land and there's no other land available, it could be brought in by an exception. This was literally discussed during the March 15th meeting among the public officials. I conclude that Area C can be expected to come into the UGB long before 40 years. For all intents and purposes, been designated undesignated, left undesignated, to avoid having to justify it as urban to you. They're avoiding cooperating with you. Finally, I make some arguments about lack of balance in the decisions. There were 3 versions of the IGA submitted, or graded between Metro and Washington County in late 2009. Clackers mentioned that they were in agreement with almost everything. Well, it turns out they weren't in agreement with parts of Washington County's things for Cornelius. Subsequently, in the spring of 2010, they made changes that decreased the amount of rural reserves. That was brought to you, and you pushed back on certain parts. The current one, as shown, reduces the amount of rural reserves still a little bit more. They moved a lot more into undesignated, but as I'm arguing, part of that undesignated really is a hidden version of urban reserves. Thank you, and that's all I have now.
Questions, Joseph? Thank you.